We are in the weekly Torah portion. It will be parshiot Mattos-Maasei. It's a double parshiot. We do end the Torah off this week. We end off the book of Numbers this week, and in this parsha, like I said, double parsha. Let's just run through it. You have the first part is going to talk about vows. We'll be looking at that more in depth. When a person makes a vow, what is a vow all about, and so on and so forth. Then after that, we talk about we're supposed to get revenge upon the Midianites for what they caused us, the deaths they caused us. And then what happens is Elazar, the Kohen, gives the koshering laws based upon that war, the laws of when we capture utensils from these the non-Jews, and ultimately today when you buy utensils from a non-Jew, you have to first kosher it, and then you have to tovel it. You have to put it through the mikvah. First, if it's brand new. No, it's not brand new. I said if you buy like you go to yard sales.
Oh, existing.
So existing. So if they used it, you have to kosher it first, and depending on how it was used, in other words, if it was a spit that's used on fire, you have to burn it in fire. If it's something that was used for boiling, then you have to boil it out. And if it was neither one, just wash it out. And then you have to throw it through the mikvah, put it through the mikvah, not throw it. Okay, you put it through the mikvah. And then we also learn in this part is that the people who go to war, as compared to the people who stay home, they're going to split the booty half. So that's the interesting thing. But the taxes they pay on it will be different. The taxes that they pay to Hashem for the people who go to war is 1/50th, as compared to the people who stay home. They pay, I can't remember offhand what they pay, but they pay much more than that. So I forget what they paid, but the reason that both of them get, by the way, a part of the prize is because the people who stayed home had to take care of everything at home, but they're still not putting themselves into as much danger as those who go to war, so they pay a different price. Then you have the story of Bnei Reuven and Bnei Gad, who have a lot of cattle, and they decide they ask if they can stay on that side of the Jordan, because there's a lot of pasture land, Og and Bashan's land, and they want to take that over, and so they ask Moshe, and they say, we would rather be here. Moshe gets into a whole tizzy with them and says, why are you trying to stop your brothers from going over the land? Here you are, strong people, and by you staying at here, you're giving them the indication that you're afraid of going over. If you're afraid, they're going to be afraid. And they say, Chaz v'sholom Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't want to stop anybody. We're going to be the ones to lead them. We'll be the leaders of the pack, and we'll bring them in. We just want this land. Because
they want to stay on the east side of the Jordan?
Right, which they ultimately do. And so Moshe says, okay, if you cross over with the Jews and you fight for them, fight with them against their enemy and take over the land, then you can come back and settle this land. If you don't, you cannot. They say chas v'shalom that we wouldn't listen to you. Of course, we'll go over. Fine. That's where parshiot Matot ends. Okay, they built up some places for their families and for the cattle, and now then they're ready to go. Then we come to the next part, which is Maasei. I'm running through just to give you a basic overview. In Maasei, we go through the 42 travels or 48. I forget what the exact number was. And it just goes. They went from here. For instance, they left from Davka and they came to Alush. So he goes place to place to place to place to place. And Rashi says, why did it have to do this? It's to show you the kindness of Hashem. That most of the travels took place before the sin of the Meraglim, and then the other majority took place when they would start to go to Israel. But during the time that they were in the desert, for the most part, they didn't travel as much. Okay, they were pretty much stable. And that's number one. That's one reason to explain that of God's kindness. Another one is, as Rashi says, is like a father who has a sick child and says, after the child gets better, reminisces with him about where he went and so on and so forth, all the travels, detailing all the travels. That's another reason. Another reason given for all these names, I think the Ramban says it, is that if God did not have this written down, then we would argue they couldn't have traveled all those places, and so on. So it would become just a mere myth of the Jews. So that's why, again, Hashem writes it down to say we went from here to here and so on and so forth, okay? And these are real name places. So that's a whole bunch of reasons that go into it. The halacha says you should not, once you start the reading of this of the travels, you should not interrupt it. In other words, you can't break it in the middle. So this is
For another aliyah.
for another aliyah, which is why it's such a long aliyah. It's a very long aliyah.
Which aliyah is it?
Well, that's going to be the fourth aliyah. But that's a combination of Mattos-Maasei. But the point
that's
is,
the one that crosses over.
right. Now, it's interesting that for whatever reason, the ones who cut the parsha up don't cut it up that way. They do interrupt the reading.
If it's a single.
In other words, they're a single parsha. They seem to interrupt the reading. If you look at it, it's interrupted. Now, if you go to Lubavitch, I was once, when I was with Lubavitch for a little while in Sharon, so it was a Monday morning. You know, people want to go to work. Or Thursday, whatever it was a Torah reading day. And that poor Baal Korea had to go right from that Maasei and right through. He couldn't interrupt the reading. It was like, wow, that's torturous. That's torturous to everybody at that point. But that's a halacha. You're not supposed to interrupt it.
The Kohen Aliyah.
Whatever it was, however they split it up. They probably did, no. No, so he did the first three, next three, but then once he got into the travels, it was done. Then he had to move. He couldn't stop it. Yeah. So it's very interesting.
Otherwise it's broken as a single parsha. It's broken before that.
Right. Again, the parsha breaks before that. There's a star here. I'm not sure what the star is all about, but there's a star. So, and maybe some people break it up differently. I'm not sure. But it's then you also have in this parsha the definitions. First of all, that each tribe will get according to their numbers. And here's where you learn that the tribes, the people who left Egypt, are the ones who caused the survivors to inherit, not the other way around. In other words, if I had 4 brothers leaving Mitzrayim, okay, and they had children and so on and so forth, so those, regardless of who had more children, we don't care about that. We get 4 portions. And each portion will then be split up by the children, no problem. But they would get 4 portions. And if somebody came out with 10, if they came out with 2 kids, whatever the case is going to be, 2 portions. And so it's the people of Mitzrayim cause the living to split that up. Okay. Then you also have the definitions or the boundaries. The boundaries of Eretz Yisrael. And that he has a picture of it on 923. Where you can see the border towns and how they broke up Eretz Yisrael and where Eretz Yisrael, biblical Israel, is, as compared to what we have today. And
so on the east side of the Jordan, so I mean that was Israel proper back then, huh?
No, it was never. Wait, which side of the Jordan?
On the east side.
Where we are now?
Where some of the tribes stayed.
No, that's not. That was never. That was always Gullus.
Huh?
That was always Gullus. We took it over. Well, I think they call it Transjordan today. I think it's Transjordan today, right? Yeah. So it was never supposed to be our land, but they wanted. So
I thought a couple of the tribes were assigned areas over there, though.
They were, but only because they asked for it. If they wouldn't have asked, they wouldn't.
Because they didn't want to cross.
Right. If it would not have been asked, it would have been left as a wilderness, uninhabitable. Okay. Because the Jews wanted, so they stayed. Then you have
Well, in this picture, it shows 2
Are you on that picture of the film of the land?
The picture of the land. There are two maps, two borders, and each one has its own Mount 4 on it.
Each one has what?
Page 923.
Yeah.
And so, and they're both in the same area. Mount 4 on the dashed line is up on the very top left corner. And Mount 4 on the bottom line is on the very top left hand corner. But one goes all the way to Lebanon, and one just goes into Lebanon Mountains, which would be the Golden Heights today, I guess.
Okay.
So there are two different opinions about which one. Yeah, that's what it says in the thing. The two different opinions.
Oh.
So how do you know which one is which?
I don't know.
So like when people say we should restore to its biblical borders.
That's going way north, yeah.
Right, who the border is.
Right.
That's almost went to Turkey.
Which is why it's very hard, because we don't know where some of these things are. We guess based upon how it's talked about in the Torah. So you would have that problem. Yeah, there's a couple of Mount Sinai, a couple of Mount Horus, you have to figure those things out. And so it could be the mountainous region. I'm not sure. Okay.
That stream of Egypt, is that the Nile River?
Again, you got me. I don't think it's the Nile, but the biggest thing is the borders go into the water. In other words, the water is not the water would be a natural border, right? But we don't do that. It goes into the water. If you look in, if you would have a map and you would draw the lines, you would see that it goes through the water.
Yeah.
So the question is, why would Hashem do that? That's a good, interesting question. If you really want to know about it, the RC, somebody in the RC, I forget what it was, but I remember reading the article about it where it's not natural borders. It's just not, natural borders would be mountains, sea, and that's it. But apparently Hashem said, no, it goes into the ocean. It goes, so.
Well, but if you've got a different country on each side of the river, then he's going to at least want the river bank on their side.
Well, you can't the river bank, but you wouldn't think you get the water rights.
Huh?
You wouldn't think you get the water rights, and here we get the water rights. So we're going through the water.
Well, on your side of the bank, your bank. It's like
but I'm saying you're going like in America, we have 200 miles out or something. What is it? We have our water rights go out.
National water.
Yeah, it's like 200. Right, but 200 miles out. Yeah. So whatever. So that's the same thing. So we were the first ones to have water rights. Those national rights, I'm guessing. We went out. I mean, it was that way. Like I said, all these things we could talk about each one of these subjects for days. Okay, I'm just really running through it just to give you an overview. But like I said, these are the sections that you should go through if you want to see biblical Israel, and you have a map. Then and you know how to read a map, so this is how you figure it out. Okay, and then you also have the names of the people who are going to cause their tribes to inherit. That's already the fourth Aliyah or the sixth Aliyah if you go by. The sixth Aliyah instead of a parsha, and we also talk about giving the Levium their cities. So again, if you look in there. On page 927, you're going to see what the city was. Then it has an open area where you could put nothing around in that open area. It has to be clear. Rashi says that was for the beauty of the city. By the way, these are the cities of refuge. These were all the gangs, the people who killed by accident go. And then you have around that the fields and the vineyards. Now, personally, I would think it should have been the other way around. But okay, I'm not God, so I don't get to make that choice. But when I looked at this, I always said, wait, it should be the city, the vineyards, and fields and vineyards, and outside should have been nice surroundings. But okay, obviously it's not. Yeah. Yes, you're first, you're second. Yeah.
So, I think the reason for that would be you're walking, you come up on the fields, that's where it starts. As it goes in, there's the city and everything in the nice plain. There's no like confused thing. You're walking and all of a sudden you're in a different part of fallow land. That's now the city. You see the guy running and you kill him in that land. It looks the same on this side.
Oh, okay. You want to say that? Okay.
Right. As soon as he starts running through a field.
Well, yeah. So he has to get into the city.
Right.
It's not good enough just to get to the open field.
Right. But then you know that he's actually on his way.
Okay. So,
Close.
yeah, what was your question?
Also, it says open area. Does that mean that there are no trees and no forests? What does that open area mean?
Well, it said, Rashi just says for the beauty of the place. So it was kept open and undeveloped for the beautification of the town.
Okay.
So you couldn't build houses or
Right.
cultivate crops. So you have trees, I'm guessing.
Right, but so on another thing for just, I guess, not spiritual stuff, physical stuff, for defensiveness of it, if it's not on a hill, or even if it's on a hill, if the rest of it is cut, all the trees are cut down around the castle of the city, then it's really hard to sneak up and sort of prepare a siege on the city.
Well,
you cut down all the trees and you can make siege.
no, but this wasn't a city. This was the city refuge.
Only on the city. Was it
This,
walled?
no. I'm not sure if it was walled enough, but it wasn't where you want to fight. This is your jail. You're going to be there for your life until the Kohen Gadol dies.
No, but an enemy comes.
But the enemy's not going to come to the city refuge. That's like going to the jail and breaking out the jail. You have murderers there. Why would you want to go to the murderers?
It's a walled city.
Again, I'm not sure if there was a wall. I don't think there was. There may not have been a wall.
Okay.
It may have just been borders, and the Goel Hadam, the Redeemer of Blood, can't go in to that area. There may have been a wall, may not have been a wall, but it wasn't an impregnable wall, certainly. Okay. And then, so there you have that. And then we talk about who can go to the city refuge. We find out only a person who kills by accident, not a murderer. If a murderer goes and or he uses a tool that can murder somebody, by the way, if he would take some wood, but it wouldn't be a splinter, and he hits somebody with a little piece of wood that can't kill, he's not responsible if the guy dies, as compared to if he takes a needle. Metal can kill at any rate. So, and you stick that in the brain. Okay, now you're chayav to death. Doesn't matter. There's no measure to that. A stone, so on and so forth. And he has to have hatred for the guy. Then again, there's no city refuge. But if a guy does it without any hatred, and he accidental, what do you call it, homicide? That's the type of offense that you run to the city refuge, and you stay there until the death of the Kohen Gadol, which we talked about before. And the reason is the Kohen Gadol should have davened on everybody's behalf that there shouldn't be murderers, and in his merit and so on and so forth. He didn't, so now they have to, so basically they're praying for his death if they want to go home. So the mother would bring the food to the people to say, don't pray for my son's death, rather pray for his life, and I'll support you. So, yeah. Say it again?
I recall in the latter years of the Second Temple, when the Kohen Gadol's position was sort of sold out,
right,
and they would constantly be dying,
right,
whenever they tried to go into the hole.
Right. I don't think there was city refuge in those days. Okay. I think it was only when the Jews were first of all, the Jews had to be in control. And I don't think it was the Romans who were in control. So I don't think they had that anymore. I'd be surprised if they did. It would be interesting because, they would be released. They would be released. Correct. That would be the easiest way. So I meant to the Kodesh Kodashim every year, there's somebody released. Okay. And the last section, which is a fascinating section of this Torah, is the Bnei Menashe who are going up to Moshe, and they speak with tremendous derech eretz to Moshe. They're asking the appropriate way, and they're saying, Moshe Rabbeinu, you gave the daughters of Salachad land amongst, and rightfully so. Their father Salachad died without any children, without any boys. So you're giving it to them. The problem is when they get married, then their land will pass from our inheritance and automatically go, if they have children, or even not, to our husband, to that tribe's, to the other tribe, right, to the husband's tribe. So we're going to, and we will not get it back in the Jubilee year. It won't come back, it won't come back to us. So, it's not fair to us. We're going to lose land. And so Moshe Rabbeinu says, you're right, very good. Okay, so girls, my advice to you is to marry in the tribe. So it says that they ended up marrying their cousins, okay, and they had children, so on and so forth, and it was good. And we learn from there that, so what happens? By the way, this also showed that the girls, Benot Slavchad, I'm calling them girls, but I don't think they're probably older than me. But Benot Slavchad were not doing it l'shem feminism. In other words, they weren't saying, I am woman, hear me now, hear me roar, whatever the song was. They were saying, we're doing it because for the reason we said, we don't want our father's name to be erased. So we don't want the land to go to somebody else. As a result, they married their cousins. What would happen in practical terms, if somebody, let's say somebody married, a woman from Binyamin marries a man from Yehuda, and then her brothers die before she does, so there's nobody left, and then she inherits the land, right? And so her kids are Binyamin. Her kids are Yehuda, tribe Yehuda. So,
married, in other words.
Right, because that's Yehuda. So her land, that land apportionment, will pass over to Yehuda. There's no question about that. So Benjamin will lose, or the other way around, depending on who's dying here. But we weren't concerned with that because everything was already set in stone. So yeah, you could theoretically own it, but you're not going to annex it to your land. It's not going to be totally lost. And so that would be one thing. The other thing, I'm sorry, I just want to get it all out. The other thing is that even if it is annexed, and you have a case of that in parshiot Mattot, where you see, and this is something that the Goyim like to pick on, who are trying to convince me that Jesus is really something important. They always lose, but they try. Okay, but it comes to, what's his name? Machir ben Menashe. So Machir was really of Yehuda. It was the case that he was really of Yehuda, but he got his mother's land. That was the case where he got his mother's land. So they want to say, from there, you see that that his son can inherit from the mother. Yeah, it's called about land, not lineage. Okay, lineage, which is where they lose the argument. But like I said, God does Moshe via God does agree with the boys, and so the girls are told they should marry in, which they do. They don't argue. And so the Chadchila, if you're ever in that situation, you should surely marry your own tribe. Yeah, and that's when they say Chazak, and Nechazek.
So what strikes me is, what about, is there any of the medieval commentators that talk about inherited genetic diseases? I once had a Goyish doctor, very, very astute, intelligent guy. He knew a lot of history, but he wasn't getting into biblical. But he said, I don't know how we got into the subject of Jewish diseases, like Tay-Sachs and whatever. There's a couple others. But he said he talked about medieval Europe conditions. The Jews were all crowded together in the same area, and they end up marrying each other. He says that's why you have those. I mean, this is way, way before that. I can almost see the same thing.
So the answer, I would say like this: I disagree with that fundamentally, because I'm not going to argue genetics. So don't get me wrong. Yeah. What I'm saying is the Torah allows a person to marry their first cousin, which is what they did. They married their first cousin. It does not say anything wrong against marrying your first cousin. The arayot are the arayot. I mean, but the arayot also don't make the forbidden relations don't make sense either, because, and that's why it's a chok. That's why it's a statute. For example, I cannot marry my aunt, but my uncle can marry my sister. It's the same relationship, right?
Oh, okay.
I can't marry my aunt, who's not even my aunt by blood, and
by marriage.
By marriage, I can't marry her.
But your uncle's wife.
I can't marry my uncle's wife, and nor my aunt from my mother, my father. Either way, but my uncle could marry my sister.
Your uncle by marriage.
By marriage or familial, either one.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So we see that it's not a matter of genetics. Furthermore, I cannot marry my sister-in-law. Again, my sister-in-law is coming from a different tribe. So why can't I marry her? What's the difference? It's not genetics.
Yeah.
But the Torah said no, and so on and so forth. I can't marry my half sister. Again, my half sister is coming from either my mother. Well, if it's coming from my father, if my mother is what makes sense. But coming from my father and some other woman, so it's not even my father. It's really a stepchild. I can't marry her. Okay, so why can't I marry these people? Again, that's the chok. That's the statute. But the Torah does allow that sort of marriage. So now the question would be, since Hashem knows everything, and He knows diseases that can come from this, why would He allow His chosen people? You could argue the other people maybe, but by the way, I wouldn't argue that either, because God loves all His children, all His creations He loves. So why would He ever allow anybody to marry somebody that's dangerous to them? Okay, so we can't. So we have to understand that. So science has decided, based upon the correlative cases, that correlation equals causation. And I'm saying to them, I'm not going to argue, because I don't have enough background to argue on that, but just based upon Torah, I would say that's a false correlation. It's not necessarily true. But again, we all try to stay away from that close thing. We don't want it. Yeah, okay. We like our teeth. We like everything else. So we really don't want to do that. But that's really our scientific mind working versus what the Torah is allowing. So I want to make that clear. The Torah does allow that, and that's, as a matter of fact, the Torah thinks. The Ramban says even more. He says, why can't a sister marry a brother? Why not? He says only because the Torah said not. But really, it would make more sense, because then land you never lose land. Yet Hashem said no, but there's nothing wrong with it.
Isn't it, again, I hate to throw that back and forth with Torah versus science. I mean, you know what I mean? Is it known or is it not known? If brother and sister do have a child between them, that there's a big possibility of genetic problems.
I would say to you like this: we don't have enough evidence to that. Most brothers don't marry their sisters, so you don't have that. So you'd have to see. And by the way, anytime you'd have to get, which I don't think you'll ever find, a whole bunch of brothers to marry sisters.
Oh, to see what the
right. So does it really work? Does it? How many generations? How many generations does it take to water this down? And what you're doing is you're making the recessive gene. If I'm going with genetics, what you're doing is you're making the recessive gene the powerful one, not recessive, but the dominant. Thank you, the dominant gene. You're causing it to become the dominant. So I don't know how that even happens, but okay, you're causing that because of the filtering. But I guess again, I'm using my lack of information to use these terms. But that's what they would argue, and I'm saying again, you have no proof, no real proof. We don't have enough. It's only anecdotal evidence. We don't have enough proof for this. Scientific. In other words, we never did the experiment. We looked at certain things. We said, okay. Animals, I have no idea. Even animals, but animals aren't humans, So I don't know.
You can only draw generalities from it.
Right. Again, does correlation mean causation or not? That's the only question you have to ask. And the answer is always scientifically no. You can't say one causes the other, because we have instances of that. So, I'm not saying that one should marry their brother or their sister. Stay away from your cousins, no problem. I'm agreeing with everybody. Marry out, although we're all ultimately related.
Ultimately.
I'll never forget, there was a Jewish woman who married, this is a true story. A Jewish woman married a non-Jewish man. They come from different parts of the world, for crying out loud. The families came from different parts of the world. They got married, they had a child. The child was born with a really bad disease. Okay? And the doctor said, the odds of this happening are ridiculously high, ridiculously low, but because your family came from blank, and your family came from blank, that's what happened. And I was thinking, you're living in your own world to say that. I mean, there was no connection to them whatsoever.
When they came from two disparate, their families came.
And yet, whenever you had those unions,
between those two disparate.
right? He said the odds were ridiculous.
That happens after you come from this and this.
Right.
Wow.
I was thinking, what a crazy.
Wow.
You just picked the straw out of the hat when to say that.
Yeah.
But the Nebuch, the kid was in bad shape. I remember that. It was very sad. You thought you were free of disease because you married somebody, again, not the same religion, not the same area, nothing.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, bang.
Wow.
That's my point. You can juggle all these things around all you want, but either you're going to come out with a healthy child, healthy by what our definition of health is, or a non-healthy child. Again, using our definition of what non-healthy is. You have people who have a lot of children and then suddenly come out with a sick child. How did that happen? You produced 10 good kids, and now suddenly number 11 is no. What happened?
Yeah.
It's the same gene pool. It should have been produced the same.
That recessive gene way back in there someplace.
No, but I'm saying.
You never know what it's going to be.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it never should have happened, logically.
By odds, yeah.
But again, Hashem has his ways. Whatever Hashem wants, in the end, is what's going to happen. So we'll argue it, and they'll tell you, "Oh, you shouldn't have had so many kids." What kind of nonsense is that? What was the number that you wanted to stop at?
Yeah.
And what's the proof? I have one that the first one is not healthy, but now the rest are. So what's your proof that? Okay, let's go on. So now we get actually into the parsha. I don't want to pick on science so much, but it's just. I think we make a religion from, it is religion. We make a religion from science.
Oh.
And because we say they must be right. They don't have to be right.
Yeah.
Again, science doesn't know everything. I certainly don't know everything, but science, religion, it has the answers as to why. They say how. I mean, it's two different things. So we have to always understand that. So now, it says, Vayidaber Moshe el Rashi Mattos. So Moshe spoke to the heads of the tribes of Bnei Yisrael, lemor, saying, Zeh hadavar shitziv Hashem. This is the matter that Hashem commanded. When I was looking here and it says Rashi Mattos, so Rashi says, Chalak kavod l'nesiim. He gave over honor to the nesiim, to the leaders, l'lamdeim techila, to teach them first. And then after that, to all of Bnei Israel. Minayin sha'af sha'ar devrot kain. So how do you know he does that with everything else? Tamalom of Yeshuv elav Aaron v'yachon sim be'eda. Because it says later on that Aaron, all the leaders returned to him. Vayidaber Moshe alehem v'yachar kain nikshu kol Bnei Israel. That then Moshe would speak to them, and then afterwards Bnei Israel will come. So he's setting that period, saying that Moshe would show honor to the Nesiim, and then he would speak to the rest of the Jewish people. And then what he's teaching is also, why is he teaching this here? Lamad shehafarat nidarim biyachid mumcha, that one could annul a vow if he is an expert in that area. You don't need a beit din, you just need one person to annul the vow. But if he's not an expert in that field, then you would have to go in front of 3 people who are knowledgeable, but not that knowledgeable in the stuff. Okay. Then it also says, this is the matter. That's what I wanted. Okay. So that's number 1. Now we get into the oaths. And it says, Ish ki yidun neder Hashem. A man, when he makes a vow before Hashem, he shavah shvuah, or he makes an oath, to forbid something forbidden on his soul. He should not make his words profane. Anything that comes out from his mouth, he should do. Rashi says, a neder is when you say hare alai, behold upon me. It's on me. The vow's on me. Okay. I make a vow that I shouldn't eat, or I shouldn't do a specific thing. Okay. And then he says, now what happens if the guy would say, I swear I'm going to eat forbidden foods. I swear I'm going to go to McDonald's, I'm going to have their cheeseburger. Really make a trait, by the way. A cheeseburger. Okay. So, what happens? Do I fulfill that vow? It said anything comes out of my mouth I have to do. So what happens? So Rashi says miyut it's a miyut. It's an exclusionary thing. I skipped something. Sorry. So it says Tamalomar the Isur the Asur Isur to forbid something forbidden. To forbid that which is permitted, not to permit something that is forbidden. So I can only, by the way, the Ramban disagrees with this Rashi. And he says, no, if you say you're not going, if you say you're going to do something that's keneged halacha, then clearly you're not going to do it, but you're going to be punished for not doing it too.
Because you said you were going to do it.
Right. You're allowed to do it because you made it tonight against Hashem.
Why would somebody take that kind of a vow? I'm going to do something I'm not allowed to do.
You're asking on...
Maybe it'd be, I'm going to rob that bank down the street.
Right.
And then you think to yourself, oh, that's wrong. I want to take that vow now.
Well, then you would annul the vow.
Huh?
Then you annul the vow,
Oh, you
right?
annul
Annul
it.
the vow. But the point is that somebody may want to say, I want to see what a cheeseburger tastes like. So I swear I'm going to eat that cheeseburger. So now it says anything comes out of my mouth I have to do. Oh, no, it doesn't work like that. It's the Asur Isur. That I forbid that which is normally permitted to me. That's what I forbid. I make that which is, and by the way, that gets us into a whole other question. Am I allowed to forbid something that Hashem has permitted? And the answer is no, and not in the normal sense. Why? Because I'm being frummer than God.
What?
Frummer. I'm being frummer than God.
I'm
saying God missed this.
I'm not going to eat that food even though I want to, the kosher food.
Right. I won't eat that food.
I'm allowed to eat myself.
Right. Now, the only time that you can make a vow like that, by the way, would be if you needed to have, you wanted to improve yourself. You were doing a type of teshuvah.
I want to cut back on something.
Right. So, for instance,
you're not saying that it's prohibited for me.
Right. Well, no, I'm saying.
You say it's prohibited.
No, like I'm saying the Nazir, the vow of the Nazir, when he doesn't eat or he or she doesn't eat or drink wine products, grape products. That's because they saw the sota, that whole incident of the sota, so they made that shavua, that oath. But in a general sense, one should really refrain from oaths because it's a very dangerous situation. If I break it, I have to bring all these korbanot. But it's the only time that one can do it is if they need some sort of reinforcement for what they're doing. Okay. As a matter of fact, if you look at this, here he gives the introduction for this. So if you look, it says vows and oaths. It says the Torah introduces a chapter which, upon reflection, gives the person the right to do something that heretofore could only be done by God, to create a new halachic status. By pronouncing the sort of vow or oath set forth in the passage, a person is given the power to invoke a neder, a vow or an oath, thereby placing upon himself or others, or upon objects of his choice, a status equivalent to that of the commandment of the Torah. His neder is so strong that a person violating it can suffer the court-imposed penalty of lashes. We can whip you for this. It must be understood that there is no English equivalent for the word neder. For lack of anything closer, it is commonly translated as a vow. A word that means a pledge to do something. A simple pledge, however, though a Jew must keep his word, is not the subject of this passage. The neder of the Torah's parlance is as follows. There are two categories of neder. One can prohibit to himself something that the Torah permits by saying, for example, the produce of such and such a country is forbidden to me for 30 days. I won't take anything from China. I won't have for 30 days. Okay. That you can do. One may obligate oneself to bring an optional offering or to perform an optional commandment, such as contribute to a particular charity, or to which one should he contribute to quickly? Midwest Torah Center. Good. Okay. Okay. You passed it to us. Okay. Or to consecrate a particular animal as an offering. Again, I can do that. By the way, when you do this, which if you listen to how we make a mishaberach, normally we say bli neder. He's not making a vow. Without a vow. Okay? Yeah. Because once you make the vow, you're in for it. You should do it anyway. You're supposed to fulfill. When somebody says, when I ask, can you come to meeting? They say, bli neder. Okay, you made a promise at that point. You made a promise. You said, I'm going to be here.
A promise, but without it.
I'm not making a neder because something can always happen. But you're basically saying, I'm committing. People always say, bli neder, which means I'm not committing. No, that's what it means. Bli neder means I'm committing to this. I'm going to be here. I can't make a neder, so fine. I won't make a neder. But I'm going to be here. That's what they're saying.
Oh, I mean, so I really, what it should mean when they say that, what it really means then is that, yes, I promise you to come. I'm not putting a vow or a pledge on your record.
I'm not giving it that. But I'm going to come. I'm planning on coming.
Make that vow because something hospital comes up and you can't make
Right,
it.
that's something else. But I'm planning on 99% I'm going to be here. The 1%, Hashem can take me out. Yeah.
I thought bli neder means God willing. Or is that the same thing?
God willing is no. God. Bli neder means without a vow.
Right.
Bli without.
That seems to be like the same thing. It's, I am coming, God willing.
Yeah, no. God again. It would be the same. But when people say, the point is either way. By the way, when they say God willing, bli neder, what you're basically saying is, yes, I will be there, but I don't want to give it the status of a vow that if I cannot fulfill, that I now have to go through headaches. I don't want that. But that means, again, 99.9% I'm going to do what I said. So that's why when somebody says they're going to donate, you better have that check ready. Because if you don't donate, you're fighting with the man upstairs. And I don't mean the painter. Okay? You're fighting with the Lord. You don't want to fight with God. Better to say no. Be straight with everybody. No, I will not donate. Thank you very much. When somebody calls you up and you want to get off the telephone, so they say, can you give them money? Yeah, $18. Good. $18. You get the bill in the mail. When you get the bill in the mail, that's the day you write the check. Do not hold that. Don't say, well, I don't have it right now. I'll get to it. No. The neder, that's a promise you made. You send me an envelope, I send it out to you. Okay? By the way, that's why they want everybody to charge it these days. Because they don't get it. They don't get it. People get the envelope, they throw it away. I didn't mean it. It was Mattos-Maasei, leave me alone.
In so many of these general charity organizations, they call you up.
Right.
And or actually even Jewish ones too, they refuse to mail you anything. They want it there. They want a credit card right now.
Right.
They won't send you any information. Pay it now.
No, so the answer is no. I don't want. I mean, I said to some people, no, I don't know you. I'm not interested in it.
Yeah, send me some information. I'll always study.
I tell them, don't even send me information. The answer is no. I don't want to. But you gave last year. I said, I don't remember you. I don't remember your name. I'm tired of being told who I gave money to. The answer is no. You just lost me as a customer. Take me up for this dirty. But like I said, you have to be willing to either say no or make the commitment to send the money out. That's up to you. Okay, that's why. By the way, again, when somebody says mishaberach, and this is for all the thousands of people listening to me, when you make a mishaberach, and that you don't wait for the envelope at that point. You better have your checks ready. Give the money, and don't say matana. Matana is ridiculous. Matana to me is 50 gift. Matana means gift. When people say, they get up there and they're big shots, they say, they give you a whole list of names, blah, 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 you know, their mother, grandmother, 50 names, and then they say, so how much are you going to give? Matana. So, I'll give you a gift. So I always told them, matana to me is $50. You putting up 50 or you want to put less? Matana starts at $50. So then you say 10. $10. Good. So I knew what I was going to get. At least I want to know what I'm getting for all that mishaberach.
I guess that when we visited Mrs. Gruben in New York, we went to shul with Tuvia,
right?
Got Leah, and they gave me and made the mishaberach, and so I gave him a specific number. She said, Yashikox, I gave a number.
Right. Okay, let's finish this up. So the neder under discussion in this passage is the first type, the voluntary adopted prohibition. With the exception of a vow to perform a commandment such as above, one cannot use a neder to require oneself to perform an act. For example, if someone were to declare, I make a neder to go to sleep on time, it is not binding under the laws terms of this passage. The second topic of this passage is Shavua, an oath. By means of an oath, one may either prohibit oneself or require oneself to perform an act. Conceptually, there is a great difference between a neder and an oath. The neder changes the status of the object. For example, if I have made an apple forbidden to myself, the apple has the status of forbidden food to me, and therefore I may not enjoy the apple. In contrast, an oath places an obligation on the person. For example, if I have sworn to eat an apple, there is a new obligation upon me, that the halachic status of the apple, but the halachic status of the apple remains unchanged. Okay, so that's the difference between we'll have to stop there, but that's again laws. These laws.
Shavua is an oath. That's upon you.
Upon
neder is upon you're saying about an object. Is that what it is?
Yeah, the neder is on the object. So if I say the apple is forbidden, it's forbidden to me. It's treif, as compared to the other things being on me. Okay, we'll have to stop here.